Hey, church kids! Hey, it's Mr. Damon! And I'm so glad that we get to hang out today. That was really good, by the way. Church kids, have you had a good week? I sure hope so. And I was so looking forward to getting to spend time with you today. So let's jump right into it. We're gonna go to a verse in the book of John, chapter 4, and we are gonna hear an amazing story today about Jesus. And let's be honest, he's the greatest human being that has ever or will ever live. And in John chapter 4, it says this. So Jesus left the Judean countryside and went back to Galilee. To get there, he had to pass through Samaria. A woman, a Samaritan, came to draw water. Jesus answered, "If you knew the generosity of God and who I am, you would be asking me for a drink, and I would give you fresh living water." And Jesus said, "Everyone who drinks this water will get thirsty again and again. But anyone who drinks the water I give will never thirst, not ever. The water I give will be an artesian spring within, gushing fountains of endless life." Whoa, church kids, what's Jesus talking about? He's talking about like artesian springs. It's like the sparkling water your mom gets at Costco. But trust me, this story is amazing. But before we get into that, you know what time it is, ladies and gentlemen. It's time for the question of the week. And the question of the week is this. Have you ever been so thirsty before? Church kids, have you ever been so thirsty and your mouth is dry and you're hot and you're sweating and it's like 1,000,000,000 degrees outside and the sun feels like an oven and you're the loaf of bread that's cooking? Have you ever been so thirsty? When you feel that thirsty, what's the one thing that you want more than anything else? That's right, a nice fistful of dry dust. No! You want water! You want some nice, cool, refreshing, water! Because when you take that drink of water and it goes inside you, your whole body is like, it's exactly what you needed. Because your body is literally like, I think it's like, 70 to 80% water. Water is what makes up part of you. And so when you and I drink it, oh gosh, it's almost like life. Well, in the exact same way, in our story today, we learn that not only did God make our physical bodies to need water, but he made our spiritual bodies to need his living water. And we're going to explain what that is in just a moment. But first, in our story, we find Jesus and his disciples going around the countryside in the country of Israel about 2,000 years ago. And Jesus is telling the people about God and his kingdom. He's healing people's sick bodies. He's kicking out demons from people's hearts. He is like fixing relationships that have been broken. Church kids, Jesus, everywhere he goes, brings healing and life. Well, he looks at his disciples after they get done teaching this big crowd of people. He's like, guys, we need to go to such and such a town. And they're like, cool, on it. I've got our phone, we got Waze pulled up, and it's gonna take us on the I-405 over to I-90 down to I-5, and we'll be there in about, 2 days. And Jesus is like, nope, scratch it, don't need Waze. We're gonna go a different route because we're gonna go through the area of Samaria. Now, when Jesus said the word Samaria, it was like a big record scratch for the disciples, like, and they're like, wait, say what? We gotta go where? Jesus is like, I want to go to Samaria. And the disciples looked at each other and they were like, okay. And the reason why the disciples acted so funny was because back in Jesus' time, the Jewish people did not like the Samaritans. In fact, most of the Jewish people hated the Samaritans. It was racism. The people in Israel thought they were better than the Samaritans. They didn't like them. They were mean to them. And so when Jesus said, I want to go to Samaria, all of a sudden the disciples, they didn't like the idea. Why? Because they had that same lack of love for the Samaritans that almost everybody else did. And so they make the long journey to Samaria. And the Bible says that the sun's hot, everybody's sweating, and they get to a well. And Jesus sits down on the edge of the well, and he sends his guys into town to get some food. Now, church kids, do you know that not only was Jesus 100% man, he was also 100% God? Which means because he was 100% man, he was happy, he felt sad, he'd get angry, he would get hungry, and he would even feel tired. And on this particular day, Jesus was hot, he was tired, and he was thirsty. So he sits down by a well. Now, a well is just a big hole that's dug into the ground that taps into the aquifer. It fills up with water, and then people lower their buckets and they get water to drink. Well, as Jesus is sitting there, lo and behold, a woman walks up carrying a big water jar. And she's a Samaritan woman. And the moment she sees Jesus sitting by the well, all of a sudden her adrenaline spikes and she gets very nervous. Because ever since she was a little girl, this woman most likely was made fun of and even bullied by other Jewish kids. And now that she was an adult, she would be mistreated and looked at suspiciously by other people in Israel. And so as she walks up to Jesus, she keeps her head down. She doesn't say anything. She's just going to get her water and she's going to go. And Jesus looks at her. And the biggest, kindest smile comes across his face. And he asks her, excuse me, could I have some water, please? And his words were full of so much love that the woman, her eyes got big. And she said, why are you talking to me so kindly? And what she didn't know was that this man sitting in front of her was God himself. And Jesus looks at her and says, ma'am, you know, this water here in the well, oh, it's refreshing, it's nice. But if you keep drinking that, you're going to have to keep coming back again and again. I want to give you something called living water. And once you taste my living water, you will never thirst again. Now the woman's like, great, I don't have to get the bucket, and I don't have to come to the well in the middle of the hot day. And she missed what Jesus was saying. Because Jesus wasn't talking about physical, tangible water. He was talking about his love. And he was telling this woman, ma'am, my love is what your soul needs to live. Just like our bodies need water to survive, our soul needs Jesus' love in order to live. Church kids, you have a physical body, your arms, your legs, your feet, your nose, but you also have a mind. And you have thoughts, but you also have your soul, which is the spiritual part of you that connects with God. But without God's love, that soul, it's like it shrivels up and dies. And as Jesus began to tell this woman about how his love is the water that her soul needs to live, it was like hope and life began to grow on the inside of her. And she realized for herself, this isn't just a man, this is God himself, the Messiah. Then she turns around, church kids, and runs back into town, tells all of her friends and family, guys, listen, I've met God. He's here. And they're like, here? Where? And she's like, out by the well. Come with me. And then the whole town runs back with her, sees Jesus, and he begins to share his love with them. And just like that woman, church kids, as that town listened to Jesus' overwhelming love, they realized too that they were listening to the words of God. And they all decided to put their trust in Jesus. And as they did, his love filled their hearts. Their soul came alive, just like when you drink that nice glass of cold water on a hot, hot day. And they were never the same. You see, Jesus' love is the only thing that can make our soul come to life. And that's what he wants to give to you. When we put our trust and our hope in Jesus, when we believe and say, Jesus, I know you're God, and I say yes to you, his love begins to fill our soul, brings it to life, and we're never the same again.